Welcome to another interview with Israel Tech. I'm here with Tal Zamir, the CTO of Perception Point. Tal, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
So in a kind of a nutshell, tell us a little bit about Perception Point, and we'll go back and get a better understanding of you and how you came into play.
Definitely. So Perception Point is a cybersecurity company. We're based in Tel Aviv, been around for 7 years. Our mission in life is to protect employees and organizations against any type of attack, be it on email, which was the typical top attack vector these days, or your browser, or any other application that you as a user in a company are using. And we do it in a very accurate way, stopping the latest threats in a very comprehensive way, and with a managed service that helps our customers really handle this end-to-end in a comprehensive way.
How important is the managed service component of it?
Yeah, it's actually one of the key points that our customers love the most about Perception Point, and one of the points that sets us apart from the competition. Beyond the awesome technology and us coming first in the detection accuracy of threats, the fact that you can call someone, talk to someone immediately within like 15 minutes and get answers and get someone to handle the incidents that you bumped into, super great for our customers, unheard of in the industry, and something that is a real differentiator out there in the market.
So let's go back and let's talk about you. We'll get back to Perception Point a bit. How did you get into cybersecurity to begin with? Kind of like, what was your journey? Because it seems like everyone in Israel has a different, unique journey, and so many people have the journey. And so maybe I want to hear yours, so maybe other people can learn.
Definitely. So I'll take you back in time. You know, it's kind of a typical cybersecurity founder story, but I started my career in the Israeli Ministry of Defense. They recruited me as I was many years in hacking programming since I was a child, and I was kind of, this was my hobby, my life.
Wait, let's go into that. When did you start getting into that? How does one get exposed to that?
Definitely. So back in the 80s, when I was like 6-year-old, I got my first PC, and you know, it was like kind of a neighborhood hobby of hacking PCs, looking under the hood, trying to get them to do things that were not expected. You know, cheats on games and stuff like that you could hack around, and up to more sophisticated programming and later, you know, hobby hacking of all sorts, white hat hacking. And this is how I got eventually to the Israeli Ministry of Defense in one of the cyber units.
Wait, hold on. So the Ministry of Defense, before you graduated high school, has, let's say, scouted you? Is that the right?
So when I was 17, basically I'm on Atuda track in the Army, meaning that you do like 3 years of, you know, Technion in my case, computer science, 18 to 21. And then once you get that, you get into some kind of tech unit in the Israeli Ministry of Defense or Ministry of Defense in this case. And this kind of a deal where you get to get the education first and then go to this kind of elite unit and get to apply your skills over there.
And the Army pays for your university in order to do this.
Exactly.
And are you then obligated to be a certain amount of time in the Army, more than the standard 2.5 to 3 years?
Exactly, yes. So you need 6 years overall, including the mandatory service. So it's like a 9-year track, 3 years of academic graduation, and then 6 years in the Army.
So what degree do you walk out of with this?
In my case, it was computer science. But you could do a lot of stuff, electric engineering or... You know.
Was it a bachelor's?
Yeah, in my case, I also continued to a master's.
Within the framework of working in the military? Or
already
after?
In the military.
Within the framework.
I finished the second degree, yeah.
Is that encouraged, or is that something you elect?
This was my own personal track. You don't have to, and they're not encouraging you, because you know you need to do it kind of in parallel to your service.
They might compete with your time.
So it's kind of a trade-off, but I did it like on my spare time, and I finished it off.
So let's say I'm a parent and I want my child, or I feel like my child would be strong in cybersecurity. Maybe like you, they like hacking video games. And how would one, let's say, set their child up for success in order to be able to pursue a career in cybersecurity, since it is an industry going to continue to grow that pays very well relative to other industries? So if you see that your kid might be, one maybe, what would be a sign that someone in their youth that this might be a good industry for them? And second, if you were a parent and you were to see that in your child, what would you do to set them up for success in Israel?
Hey, it's a great question. You know, when I was a kid, it was completely different.
I'm sure. Yeah,
no internet access. You know, you need to like really work it. And today, the amount of different options kids have. I have two daughters, so I
Me
know.
too. I was doing that.
So they have so many distractions, so many different things. They want to be on TikTok or they want to do other stuff. But basically, the tools that are available today, from programming for kids, a platform like Scratch, which is a popular junior programming application, and many other options, I would say expose your kids to those types of new options for learning programming at an early age and see if it sticks. It needs encouragement because, just going into a text editor and writing code is not something that is very attractive for kids by default. You need to have something more attractive than that. And some of the alternatives are more visual. I would say eventually if someone is curious, if someone wants to understand how things work under the hood, if they, they break things apart and see how they work, that's a good sign. Initially, but and you need as a person.
Usually I get frustrated.
Yeah, exactly.
One daughter breaks a lot of things.
That's good. That's a good sign. And I think that you need to encourage to expose to these types of things. Set an example. I try with my kids. When I'm building some hobby project and I still get to do that, then I share what I'm doing. I'm trying to pull them into my projects and even to my work projects to explain what we're doing. And I think it sparks some curiosity. And we're doing some whiteboarding. I explain what I'm doing in very simple terms, but it's really helpful, I think. So they understand that it's something that's out there. I also personally went over to their class, do an extra class for the entire classmates, teaching them about cybersecurity, about threats. So exposing them to this world and trying to make it accessible so that they are interested in the topic at an early age.
So, one is interested, and let's say even they're doing well, right? It's basically a hobby. You're talking about a teenager. How does the government rep find you while you're in high school to see that, and for them to extend this unique opportunity?
Right, so they have a lot of different people specifically for this target of this aim of finding the right talent. They go over to schools, look at the top tier students with the top grades. And they typically look at the ones that are doing computer science classes and stuff like that. At least at my time, that's the way they did it. It's just going directly through the classes and asking for the top tier students. That's one way. Today, there's all kinds of other programs where you get to go to university at the age of 15 or 14 or earlier. So I guess this is another track for them to identify those talents.
Got it. You outlined kind of how you can help your kid be seen and find those opportunities. So you found that way. That's great. So in the Army, you're doing cybersecurity, 9 years. What can you share?
Well, I think the most interesting part about cyber and the Israeli Ministry of Defense or Israeli Defense Forces basically is the responsibility that they hand over to 18-year-olds, fresh out of the Army, or in my case, 21-year-olds, where basically you get to own some of the most critical projects in terms of Israeli security, stuff that is really mission critical, right? And I think this is...
Does that worry you?
Yeah, it is. It is. On one hand it is. On the other hand, there's so much, mission in it, and kind of the impact that everybody feels that they're leading to is amazing. And it really drives people, especially young folks that have no family yet, probably usually, and can really dedicate their lives to this. And it's, 24/7 when there's a need for that. And the people really are a strong family, united, working together towards a shared goal. So for my own personal experience in the mandatory and then later the extended service was of this super tight unit working together to fix a problem, to get some intelligence, to do whatever we need to do in a way that I haven't seen anywhere else. The level of engagement and the impact that we're able to create as this kind of unit of talented people, dedicated people, I think it was amazing. And it's in the right hands. It's really in good hands.
So how has it changed over your years in the Army? Has the technology changed? Has your responsibility changed? Do they move you around to different responsibilities so you get more exposure? Do they try to also give you enough education so you can then enter the private industry and create a startup like you have?
It's a good question. So I think, yes, of course it evolves over the service. You start as a junior developer and then you extend it into leading a team, sometimes leading a whole branch, and you learn the skills of agile development, or working very rapidly because time really matters in those types of projects. Being able to create the right methods and methodology for the team to be effective when you're not just on your own, but as a team. So there's a lot of on-the-job training that's part of the definition of this kind of units that gets you to build those skills, not necessarily intentionally. It's not like there's a training program how to be great in the startup industry after your service, but it's by design kind of a startup mentality on steroids, where you really have a goal, you need to move really fast, you need to release versions very fast, in certain places at least, in some of those units, that teaches you the secrets of the trade as you go as part of it. There's also, of course, all kinds of training courses, but some of them are more specific to like specific skills that are related to the army.
Like what? What are those skills?
I can't share all of that, but some of it is, some of it is programming, specific kind of advanced reverse engineering of software in some cases. Some cases it's how to build mission critical software that needs to be like, think about like landing a missile, a rocket on the moon, right? That's the type of technology and sometimes the type of mission critical work you need to do in the army. So writing code to be that robust when you have very little room for mistakes, I think that's one of the things you learn. And they teach you that both on the job and as a more organized way. Again, it was 20 years ago for me, so I'm sure today it's even better.
Right.
But there's also some structured training. Most of it is on the job.
Awesome.
Honestly, and sometimes it's one generation teaching the other, right? The
Right.
seniors are teaching the others, and there's like internal courses that we built for the younger ones.
That's nice. That's fun.
Yeah.
No, so it's really robust.
Yeah, definitely.
So when did you finish the army, and then how did you get into the industry?
Right. So it was 2008 when I finished my service, and I joined a startup in the enterprise software world, a company called OneNova, and we. Came in as one of the first engineers in the company and built it literally from the first line of code up to acquisition a few years later by VMware. So that was a great experience for me, cool. To get right out of the army and see how it is to build a company from scratch. I was also, then later joining the CTO office at VMware, looking at innovation in a bigger company, in a US organization. Corporation with 15,000 employees.
What are the main differences you see between like an Israeli startup writing your first lines of code, or even let's say more developed, and then kind of dealing with that larger American kind of
right.
company?
Yeah, as you would expect, the stereotypes are true, right? And
right.
when you're in a bigger organization, then there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of politics, but there's also a lot of power as a big company that has a lot of resources,
right.
and definitely investing a lot of in innovation. But it's challenging to move this huge fleet of a huge US corporation to do completely new things, or building, getting new groundbreaking products to market, because it just takes longer. And after a few years there, I understood that I need that to go back to that startup mentality.
So I get this a lot, or I speak to other people out. They get acquired, or they grow, or I hear people, I'm sick of startups, I need to just go somewhere I have a little more budget, so speaking when I work with marketers. And then they're like, this sucks. I need to go back to startup, no as much control, I don't get to use as much BS creative, et cetera, et cetera. Is that what you were feeling? And
yeah, definitely. Although I got to say, for VMware's sake, the company I worked for, they really invested a lot in innovation. They had like internal conferences for, they fly everybody out to San Francisco. I stood on stage and kind of showed the latest innovation that we built internally to thousands of VMware employees and customers. Awesome. But at the end of the day, until it hits the ground and really makes an impact, it was frustrating for me personally.
Oh, so you don't even, like the work you do, you don't even get to see it be used.
Sometimes it does get to be used, but most of the time it's not. It's actually shelfware or stuff that is getting like a great idea, but for some kind of reason. It could
It
be
just
like,
doesn't fit into
yeah, it doesn't meet the strategy right now, or too much of a pivot for the company.
Yeah,
that it doesn't make
that's
sense.
proof of a company too big.
Yes, exactly.
Would you say, Monovo, sure, would you say too many engineers or too many computers? That's what it sounds like, right?
In a big corporation like
yeah,
that.
yeah, VMware, right? Like,
Definitely.
yeah, it
definitely.
sounds like they're too big.
It's like you sometimes have too many programmers working on the same stuff.
Right, there's a lot of
the same
overlap,
company,
or it's into a tangent.
and the time zone differences. When you're an Israeli company, it got acquired by a U.S. corporation, then the time zone and the mentality and the culture do make a difference. And it was tough. Most acquisitions, by the way, they don't work out. Especially when a U.S. corporation buys an Israeli company, to integrate the technologies and make that team work in a way that is super
Let's talk
effective.
about that. Why does that fail so often?
Yeah.
Like
it's a
more
good
than if
question.
an American company bought a similar American startup,
Yeah, I think it's
or Israeli company or Israeli startup.
right.
Or would you think that it's the same if an Israeli large company, let's say like Checkpoint or something, were to buy an American? Do you think it's the same problem, or is it just uniquely an American corporation buying an Israeli
I
startup?
think especially when it's like a remote development team that is away from headquarters where the decision making is being made. They try to bridge the gap. They try to bring on senior management over to the headquarters, but it's typically it needs a lot of work to make it happen and be effective. When they're asleep, now you're working, and everything is delayed, and it's a bit harder. There's also, there's a lot of, in many cases, like there's developers at the headquarters that are like the more senior ones, and they want like to have the influence, the impact, and like sometimes like for U.S. Headquarters, it might seem that the Israeli shop is like an offshore thing,
Right?
And they want to own the more impactful, more significant projects. So there's politics involved sometimes. It's really on a case-by-case basis. It doesn't mean that none of those acquisitions work, but there are many cases where it's tough to integrate and be like part of the DNA of the company for real.
Because do you think that large American companies don't make space for, like, they fear the small, fast-moving, agile startup?
Yeah, it depends on the case.
It holds like a mirror up to their gluttonous, right?
Yeah, some of them are like that, yeah, and it really depends on the company. It's not one for all, yeah.
So you then founded your own company after you're telling me?
Exactly.
What company was it?
So the company was called Isolate. It was a company founded by a venture capital firm called Team 8, which is strong in the cyber in Israel. We were their fourth company. I was the sole founder coming in. It was a great opportunity for me to.
What made you find it? Like, how'd you get your transition from being acquired, working at VMware, moving over to? How does that happen? How did you raise the money? Did you start then
Right.
Like that's the
Definitely.
You skipped like the hardest part of your career, probably.
Yes, definitely. I skipped the hard part. But basically, there's, as you know, we're in Israel. We know each other, right? It's a small family, and especially if you're part of those cyber units in the Israeli Defense Forces. Team 8 is a team of 8,200 commanders that set up this VC.
For those who don't know, that's the name of the unit. It's not 8,200. That's not the number of commanders.
Yes, exactly. And they are well connected to the unit. I served into, and we just had short connections, and they were looking for a founder to start the next company.
Did you not even know what you wanted to do yet?
Actually, I had a bunch of ideas.
But like you were like, and there were other people that had ideas. They wanted to found something. You're like, hey, let's do something, and you didn't even know what it was yet.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I have this great idea. Hey, would you like to join me? What do you think about it?
Yeah, it was more like I had a bunch of ideas. They had a domain they wanted to get into and build the next company, and it was a match. I was into the virtualization domain, which is what I've been working on for the many years before, and they were looking to add cybersecurity plus virtualization. I'm going to bore you with the details. But definitely, we had this vision of virtual machines are something that has become a commodity back in the day when we started the company, and they are really a strong way to isolate one environment from the other. You can, on your laptop, kind of set up two different environments, one for, let's say, work, and another for personal stuff. And this availability of technology around virtualization, which was a main thing of my work back in the day, was a great fit into their cybersecurity paradigm of let's do isolation of the work stuff from the personal stuff. So we kind of matched the two and said, hey, we could build a startup that would really protect employee laptops by creating this safe zone, completely isolated from the rest of the computer, so you can run work-related stuff securely without mixing with your pleasure and other stuff. So that was the original idea, and it was kind of a nice match.
And then, this is when Perception Point comes in, yeah?
Yeah, so
many years
money forward. Yeah, so,
yeah,
so we raised in Isolate, we raised over $40 million over the years.
14 or 40?
40. 40.
40, wow.
Yeah, so a lot of money. And it was a real roller coaster, as they say in startups, and it was truly like that. We built it to up to a point where we sold it to multiple enterprise customers, huge ones, small ones, but eventually it was a journey that took like 6 years, 5 years overall. An average, by the way, startup is like 7 years in the making. But we did find that what we built was especially too secure in a sense. What I mean by that, it was meant for high-end security audiences, like companies that really need strong isolation, and it was not for everybody. So it was tough to get it to mass markets, basically. But we found a good fit with Perception Point, where Perception Point was primarily an email security company that looks to extend into additional spaces. Especially protecting the browser, for example, which is this kind of main application that everybody uses these days for so many purposes. And the technology of securing the browser that we had from the Isolate days, together with Perception Point looking to extend and protect additional applications beyond just email, made it a good match for Perception Point to acquire Isolate.
You get acquired by Perception Point. How did you guys find each other?
Right.
I feel like, by the way, there's like a theme in Israel notice in tech. Is that like, how do people find and connect, right? We're talking about like, how did the Army find you in high school? How do people find you? How do you collaborate? How do you do start your own business? How do you get hired? It's all about, there's this unique network effect. It's related to like Jewish geography. Everyone knows each other. Everyone's related. You give business to your competitors if it's not a good fit for you. It's very uniquely Israeli. So how do you find each other? I always find it to be a good story in Israel.
Yeah, actually, it's really such a small community. And just as an anecdote, there's a big cybersecurity conference in San Francisco every year, RSA and Black Hat, and on the plane over there, it's all the entire cybersecurity industry in one plane over there every time, and everybody's talking, because it's really, eventually, it's not a huge community, and everybody knows each other. And of course, VCs in Israel talk, and our VC teammate was talking to many different other VCs, and one thing led to another. They knew Yoram was the CEO of Perception Point. And actually, I met Yoram years before during my Isolate days. So we knew each other. And basically, it was a good fit both for what Isolate could offer and what Perception Point needed in terms of building a bigger story of protecting the entire user workspace and not just a specific application. So it really made a lot of sense.
It made sense, but who approached you? Or were you connected by a teammate? Or
we were looking in general to see, for next investment, we were looking around. So VCs were talking to a lot of different companies. And part of them is a Perception Point, which is turned out, instead of an investment opportunity, to go and sell the company.
Awesome. So at Perception Point, how were you able to take the technology and merge it in? Was it easy to do?
Right. So it's always a challenge, following what we discussed earlier. When it's an Israeli company buying another Israeli company, it's much easier. The mentality, the location, the time zones, everything. Right. And it was actually, I think, very well done. The team was integrated in an amazingly fast way. Again, because we're all talking the same language, we're both cyber companies. A lot of, by the way, shared connections between employees of Isolate and employees of Perception Point. They knew each other before. They didn't know that this acquisition was going to happen, but they got to know each other after the acquisition, which was really nice.
That's cool.
And we built a proper plan of how to integrate, what are the goals, and how do we get a product to market, a shared product to market as soon as possible. And literally in 6 months or even less than we started the acquisition, we released the first shared product containing technologies from both sides. And this was a great way to like put the team together and get something out.
So let's talk about the product. So what exactly does Perception Point do? Because when you kind of explain the beginning, it sounds very generic.
Yes.
We protect.
Yes,
Blah, blah, blah.
yes, exactly.
I feel like I can put, but let's get more into
Definitely.
specific and then the technology and business model.
Definitely. So Perception Point actually started again as email security. Email security is a very common problem out there, but the take that Perception Point took to solve this problem is quite unique. In simple terms, we really put in-depth detection as our primary goal. Not all the companies, it sounds like it must be that everybody does that, right? Everybody invests a lot in detection, but a lot of the cybersecurity companies out there do like very shallow levels of detection just to check the box or to stop in a place where it's cost effective for them to do the detection work. One of the principles that your arm actually has led, and I really think it's quite unique, is really no compromises on the detection level. And the technology, the IP, the patents from Perception Point and from Isolate are around how do we do in-depth detection. Like, I'll give you one example, right? When you get an email, that email can contain a file, which is a zip file containing another file and another file and another file.
Right.
And eventually there's some Word document down at the end of it, which has some malicious content in it. We really dissect everything. We run that Word document in a virtual machine in the cloud to inspect it and see if there's anything malicious in it. We do a lot of different
Do you run
engines.
it virtually because it's isolated?
It's isolated. Regardless of that, we do that. We want to inspect it in a clean environment where we can test things, but it's also beneficial that it's isolated. But my point is that we really inspect everything dynamically in depth. We really are trying to be the best in the industry in terms of detection. And by the way, everybody says that, but when you go to benchmarks by third parties that do independent testing of the detection accuracy, we come first year after year, and that's not taken for granted. It's not like fake bullshit tests, it's real in-depth testing. So I think this is the key differentiator for the technology of Perception Point, the ability to scan things in depth and to do it across different applications. A lot of companies do only email security or only browser security or only something else, right? We do all of the different applications you have today, and you have so many different apps.
Do people ever worry like, oh, well, if you do all of them, then you can't be the best at any of them?
Right.
Is that fair criticism?
So because the same shared engines that I talked about earlier, the detection is applied across the board, we give the same quality of detection across all of those different applications. And beyond that, we also are able to connect the dots. So I'll give you an example. If you get an email that leads to a website that you open in your browser, we can connect the signals we got from your email, like who's the sender and what is reputation, with signals we see when you launch the link in the browser, like what does it look like? Does it have a login form? Does it look shady?
Interesting.
So we connect the dots across different sources, channels, as we call them, and then we decide.
What other sources and channels? This is fascinating.
So think about any kind of modern application like Teams or Slack or Google Drive or OneDrive.
People use Teams?
Yes, a lot of them. A lot of them. It's surprising, but
not at OpenAI.
Yeah, OpenAI doesn't like that. But and it's like a Microsoft thing. But eventually, if you look at the enterprise market, most companies in the world are buying Microsoft services that include their email, their cloud storage, their Teams messaging platform, and so on.
So you were saying, so let's say they're using something like Slack or a third party.
Exactly. So I'll give you another example. If we found that an email is malicious, right? We look for the file in that email across all of those different applications. If someone sent you the same file over Teams, we can delete that file from Teams as well. So if you found it in one application, we can quarantine it or delete it across all the other applications. So it works in collaboration to really eliminate the threats across the board in an effective way, both to detect more effectively and to respond more effectively. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense because I'm a marketing background. We do marketing for cyber. And so we do their ads and their SEO, the collaboration of what keywords are getting traction on SEO and Google Ads. And we can do ads on social to bring more demand to these keywords that might have lower demand or lower cost per click. So obviously having that holistic thing.
Exactly. So same thing in cyber. Companies are looking to consolidate. They don't want 10 different vendors to handle, one for email, one for browser, one for Teams, one for Drive. You want one vendor that can do a great job in stopping the real world threats out of the box and with a cherry on top of having this as a managed service in a stand and forget kind of way, which is what we do.
Awesome. So the fact that you can cover so many apps and be holistic, that's terrific. But a lot of different companies of different sizes use different apps and have different suites. Are there certain apps that you can't cover? Do you have a specialization for different size of companies, or kind of like, how do you pick and choose your right audience or niche, or choose your direction on here we're really strong, so let's continue to do R&D and develop and expand in this direction?
Definitely. So first, as I mentioned before, like most companies out there, they use Microsoft. That's the fact of life.
Right, especially enterprises.
Yes, enterprises of all sizes. By the way, even the smaller ones, they go with a Microsoft suite.
Why?
Because it's cost effective for them to like get the vanilla standard best practice. No one got fired for buying IBM. They go and buy Microsoft, because that's like the default vanilla that everybody's used to. And a lot of the IT folks are coming from Microsoft management backgrounds.
Right.
So that's
So
what they're used
to
to. And it's like a continuation of that. The fact of life is that's the reality. And then the applications from Microsoft are the number one target for us, like the email from Microsoft,
Outlook,
Excel, all the Office applications and collaboration apps like Teams and others. Now, beyond that, because we have protection in the browser, and because users have now moved most of their work,
if you say browser, you mean Internet Explorer,
Chrome or Edge or any modern browser, Safari on Mac, whatever, we don't care. We are able to protect you in the browser. And if you look at what you do as a person, employee, in your day-to-day life in front of a computer, most of the time is spent on the browser in apps that run within the browser.
Right.
So anything that
like
runs...
like WhatsApp web app.
Yeah, WhatsApp web or Zoom on the web, or any kind of collaboration app that you're used to, design app, it's all having a web version as well. So if you're running stuff on the browser, we'll be there to protect you regardless of app. We don't need to build any integrations for that. The fact that we protect the browser already covers like the vast majority of modern SaaS applications.
Do you protect that? Do you protect it because you're on the whole network? So I can go and download any browser I want as an employee, and anything on any browser on my computer or on the network.
We'll still protect.
So what if I'm a guest and I'm connecting to your Wi-Fi, which I have, and I'm using a browser, okay, let's say I'm using Brave, which I use.
Yes, definitely.
So then it's automatically protected now that I'm on your Wi-Fi.
As soon as you try to access my applications, my corporate applications.
So I'm not okay, it's only through the corporate application.
Exactly.
Well, so anything that can access the corporate applications, it is. So if I got access to use your corporate applications through your Wi-Fi, then it would be protected, but until then it's not.
Yes, exactly, because it's your own computer. I cannot control what you do on your own computer until you actually access my own applications, my company's applications. But my point is that we don't need to choose which applications to protect. Any web application, anything that runs in the browser is protected by default, which is great. So that answers that challenge. And it's important to say also that the fact that we are plug and play and supporting all of those applications out of the box, we're serving with that kind of approach both the huge enterprises of the world, for Fortune 500 companies with hundreds of thousands of employees, and up to a mom and pop shop in Arizona where they have 20 people. We don't care. You just plug us in and we'll protect all of those applications.
Wouldn't an enterprise think like, if you're giving me the same the technology or suite as the pizza shop, I feel like you're not the right fit. Do you run into that issue?
Actually, we don't. I didn't ever get this kind of pushback, because eventually what matters to them is, are you stopping the threats, right? Are you able to get, when they do a bake-off between us and other 10 different vendors, and we win in the vast majority of times in POCs, it's because of the quality of the detection and the service that they're getting, and that's by the end of the day what matters to them.
Okay, got it.
And eventually, we're not big enough to be Microsoft at this point, so that like we're a vanilla standard commodity technology. We're a very high-end detection security company, and not the bad guys cannot get access to our software like that. So as opposed to Microsoft, where if I'm an attacker, the first thing I'm going to do if I'm building some malicious payload, I'm going to try the latest and greatest from Microsoft, which I can get in a click and see if it bypasses that. So Microsoft has become like the default minimal bar. And Perception Point is more like high-end, niche, boutique technology that can do high-end detection.
So how does your, first off, like let's talk about the growth of Perception Point, in addition obviously to acquisitions, which we discussed. How much was the funding and the partners of your VCs? How much does that play a part? How much of it was partnership? How much Was more money related? What kind of doors were they able to open for you?
Yeah, so we have amazing VCs, both in Isolate and today with Perception Point. They really are.
Who are your partners?
Come again?
Who are your partners?
It's Pitango, Red Dot, Nokia Growth Partners. I don't think I'm missing anyone, but probably there's a few more. I joined a year and a half ago to Perception Point. Sorry if I don't remember the whole history of the
Don't
whole.
apologize to me. I'm asking.
But basically, they are very supportive. They're opening doors for us. They're really connecting us to potential clients, especially the bigger ones where door opening is needed. But regardless, the company is already serving thousands of end customers, which is quite amazing. A lot, both direct and through partners of ours of all sorts, channels and strategic partners that are using our technology behind the scenes, managed service providers, managed security service providers that offer this up to their end customers. So we're really at this growth phase where we're really providing the value to a vast amount of customers.
You talked a lot about kind of the different, how you're able to address different markets, different sizes. At the end of the day, they put you through a POC, and it's not even a part of the equation for them is the fact you may serve companies that are radically different industry or radically different sizes. Would you say that given that, and companies always need to ensure that they're secure, would you say there's a sense of resilience in a bad economy? I'm just wondering what kind of systematic issues, both economically and both the massacre from Hamas, how has that played any kind of played a part?
Right. So, this year in general, even before the war, there's been a macroeconomic challenge, crisis, whatever you want to call it. And we're fortunate enough that we haven't been hit significantly by that, because by the end of the day, what we're selling is essential cybersecurity protection for almost any company of any size, of any industry. Because eventually you want email security, you want protection in the browser of your SaaS app. This challenge is real, providing real value. We're not a company that's building something which is luxury. It's really something that you feel if you don't have that. So we're lucky to grow even in this tough year. Of course, with the war and the massacre and the October events, and there's lots of folks in Perception Point that went on military reserve, lots of folks that volunteered and built projects to help this effort. And this has been, of course, a hit, holding back some of our work, our planned work, but there's priorities, and this is something that comes first. Everybody is part of this duty.
Yeah, I'm sure. A lot of people are feeling like it's inspiring how people have really stepped up in whatever they can to help. Those that are in reserves, right? So we're talking about a cybersecurity company here, a Perception Point. They're basically people that did things similar to what you did. Is there a reason why you weren't called? Were you released?
So as you can see, the gray hair. So I'm a bit older for being
I also have some gray hair.
in active military reserve. But I did participate and organize a group of developers for a while to build a side project to help the forces. Again, related to my work.
Do you miss it?
Yes, definitely. It's like,
do you wish? Can you like say like, hey guys, like, I'm available. Come.
Yeah, the problem is that the generations have been replaced, and it's like the contact list is completely different now, like in those units. But we still have some customer in those forces that have enjoyed what we've built over this period.
So has that slowed down like your development? The fact that you have many team members that are now in the reserves.
Yeah, definitely. We had a bump in what we plan to do, but we all understand that this is top priority as a country.
Do you think them coming out, just like when you were in the Army and so were they going to come out with new unique skills and approaches that can then be able to help Perception Point in ways that they couldn't? It's like a crazy boot camp in a way, or they get really excited, maybe, hey, let's go start our own thing.
No, I don't think they will start their own thing, or will they learn like brand new things in a month period, right? It's not like that, I think, but it's definitely, for me at least, it's strengthening my belief in the need to build great startups in Israel and to help the economy. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about helping the military, helping us win the war, but basically, if we're building a successful company and the taxes we pay to Israel, right, eventually come back to the population, come back to the army.
Right.
So I think, if anything, once people come back, they'll be driven to make this company even more successful. So I hope this is the outcome.
Awesome. How are you? So you're saying despite the economic challenges and the war, you're still growing.
Yes.
Can you share any of your revenues or anything?
I don't think so. No, I can't publicly share, but I can again say that we have thousands of customers across the world in any vertical, in any size, from the smallest ones to the biggest ones, and we're in growth phase. That's where we are.
Awesome, terrific. And what other advice, let's say, if you were to give to other cyber companies that are trying to grow during this stage, since you've kind of been through it?
Yeah, I think for the founders that are starting something new right now, again, I would stick to solving a real pain in the world that is validated to be a real strong pain point. Because I see many founders and many companies that go after the latest trends or like the shiny new thing. And in many cases, they don't do enough validation. I learned it in my own career that this is the most important thing, like validate the business need, make sure you're solving a real problem, talk to customers. Techies like myself, we like to build technology, we like to develop, write the code, but you can build an amazing product, but if there's no real need, there's no strong need, it's a waste of time. So my advice, validate, especially these days, find the real true pain points, and then go after that.
I see pain point, perception point. There's a lot of things.
Yeah, no pun intended.
The one thing I wanted to get into was AI.
Yep.
And I'll just say it because the word's thrown around a lot, which it is, and too often, and people don't know what it means usually. But that's a big component of perception point.
Definitely.
And I was surprised you didn't discuss that at all.
Yes.
I didn't intend to pull it out of you. I thought after you say it. Maybe you can talk a little bit about kind of how AI plays a part in perception point and cybersecurity in particular, because definitely. I'm seeing that these are overlapping more and more.
All over, definitely. I'm not using this, I don't like to throw out this buzzword just for
I know, I don't either. So if
overused.
You want to use a different word, okay, but go ahead.
It's so overused, and we've been at it.
That's why I was hoping you bring it up.
Yeah, definitely. Perception Point has been doing part of the detection that I talked about. Of course, one of the key central engines to what we do and how we do our detection is a lot of heavy lifting machine learning models that do a variety of stuff to detect the latest, most evasive threats out there. I'll just give you a few examples just to explain what we do, some of the latest ones. But we've been at it for years now with a team of data scientists and engineers focused just on that. One example is image recognition models and vision models. Like you would think, how is this related to email security or other stuff that we do? But when you bump into, let's say, a website or you get an email, you could inspect it at the textual level or look behind the scenes how the email is built or how the website is built. But it's more interesting to look at it as a user would in terms of the perceptual vision kind of view of a website or an email. And this has been a great approach for us to finding the latest phishing pages, the latest evasive emails, because it doesn't matter how the attacker constructs the email or constructs the website internally, how they implement it behind the scenes. If it looks like a phishing page, if it looks like a phishing email, we will see it with machine learning, image recognition models, and understand that it's a malicious kind of incident. Another cool use of machine learning, which is quite recent, we all heard about generative AI, ChatGPT, large language models. I'm sure you're familiar with that. We use this to find new types of campaigns that are identical or similar in the meaning and not at the textual level. I'll explain.
What do you mean? Yeah.
I'll explain. So basically, traditional ways to protect against email campaigns is to look again at the text level, to see specific words, keywords, what are people writing specifically, like with patterns, to identify that, hey, I've seen this before, it looks malicious because I've known this specific text pattern. We're now, with this technology, can move up to the next level and look at things at the meaning level, at the semantic level. Even if you, as an attacker, write a completely new scam email, without using any existing words that used in another campaign, just write it completely from scratch. We can understand that your meaning, your intent, your semantic level is identical to another scam that we've seen before. Like, I'll give you a concrete example. There's a popular scam around gift cards. I'm pretending to be the CEO. I'm convincing you, hey, the team has done such a great job. Mr. Finance, please buy gift cards for the employees. Keep it a secret because we need to buy it immediately before New Year. And this is a very typical scam which of course ends up with transactions to the attacker's bank account. Now I can rewrite this entire thing with completely different English, completely different phrasing,
Right.
but we'll understand it's the same thing, even if we've never seen something
Well,
like this
what
before.
if you like use like Grok or ChatGPT or Bard, and you're like, hey, take this email and make it sound like a regular marketing email, right?
Exactly.
But then isn't there? Then you can do it again and again.
You can.
And again and keep doing it, and want to be to a point where you wouldn't be able to recognize it. And we're talking seconds.
Yeah,
to be able to
that's the beauty of it. This technology made it possible for attackers to create tons of variations very quickly. But because we're using the same underlying technology, the large language models, to detect that they're the same essence, we don't care. You can create 1,000, 10,000 of those, or different types of attacks that we've seen schematically, semantically. We know that it's the same essence.
Right.
We can stop them as a family. Again, moving from the textual level to the meaning semantic level.
Since you're using like the same underlining LLM, does that mean you need to be using every LLM because they can be using any one? Do you need to run it through all of them?
You don't need
or
to,
because they do have different data that feed into each of them.
But we found that it doesn't matter for us.
Because the laws of large numbers, it's going to be almost
as long as we take a good enough model behind the scenes and we train it,
right.
We're good to go.
So how are you guys expanding from here? I mean, you're protecting everything. Now, what should we expect to hear from Perception Point in the next year or two?
Definitely. So there's a lot of different directions we're progressing with. First, this connection between different channels, as I mentioned, the fact that you get something from email or from browser or from other applications, and to do this kind of interconnectivity between those applications to understand the bigger picture of what happened and the story across different applications. Like if you go from one app to the other to the third one, we can tell the story of what happened. We can stop it more effectively. And we're doubling down on this multi-channel protection. That's one. Of course, machine learning is going to be still key to our technology, both in the detection, as I mentioned with the examples I mentioned before, but also helping the security analysts on the customer side better understand the story. I'll explain what I mean. When we stop something, when we stop a malicious email, we will tell you all of the forensic data of why we think it's malicious. But sometimes for a junior analyst or someone who's not well into the details, it's overwhelming. It's too much information. You might not understand what exactly happened here. And again, with generative AI and machine learning, we can really tell a story, something visually, of what happened here in this attack without you having special skills to really dive into the details. So like giving you the big picture story, again, with using generative AI as in this example. So this is like two big examples. There's many others around how do we scale the service, make it more cost-effective to our customers, reducing the price. They have to pay for this. How do we make the service faster, even more than the 15 minutes on average that we're providing today for response, and more of that like.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to see like where Perception Point continues to go and the new apps you continue to protect is very exciting. Cool. Thank you so much for joining me, Tal.
Thank you. Pleasure.